Jerry Kill being cleared to coach players on the sideline on game day will be a huge difference maker. Get ready.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sportsing like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Today, we discussed that in order for Vandy to be successful, they must win the easy games versus Alcorn, Georgia State, and Ball State. But first, Jerry Kill is cleared to coach players on the sidelines on game day, and that's going to be a big difference maker. And why is it going to be a big difference maker? This is why. Because it was unclear when he came in as to what his role was going to be. He left New Mexico State in a not so great way, and that way being health reasons, seizures, things like that knocked him out of his other previous head coaching stints, most notably Minnesota, where he had that program definitely on the rise. It was just unclear when he first got here as to what his role was going to be. Is he going to be a consultant? Is he going to be somebody that just sits down and helps Tim Beck devise an offense, give Clark Lee advice, and just kind of be a fly on the wall and things, share his 2 cents behind the scenes and that be it? Well, spring practice rolls around and now you're seeing Jerry Kill coach on the field, which I think analysts were always allowed to coach on the field, or they're allowed to coach on the field now, and get people with special titles and things like that. But now, as it stands, so we didn't know if it was just going to be a practice thing and he was just going to be in the booth giving Tim Beck stats and advice and things like that and his thoughts on what to see and all that good stuff. Well, now that he's cleared to coach on game days and to coach the players, this is truly great insight because you're adding another voice, another expert in Diego Pavia's ear after every series. And this is going to be a huge difference maker because now it was unclear also as to where Tim Beck was going to reside. Was he going to be on the field so he could talk to Pavia and talk to the offensive guys on their way off the field? Was he going to be up in the booth making calls and relaying it down to his assistants? Well, now his top assistant is Jerry Kill, and that pipeline of information is going to be incredible. Now, I think you're going to get a lot of great insight, a lot of great intel, and you're going to be able to have a second head coach on the field, not only to help the offense and help Pavia when he's struggling and to kind of, either kick him in the rear end if he needs it or put his arm around him and say, hey, let's, this is what we got to do, while also offering up suggestions and advice and things to Coach Beck up in the press box. It's now you have another voice, you have another head coach down there with Clark Lee, and someone being able to have a headset on, be able to kind of offer things through the headset to Clark Lee, who, for all intents and purposes, is still very much in the learning phase of being a head coach. He's tried different things, different approaches. Now he's relying on Jerry Kill to kind of help him along in his journey. And it also gives you another head coach on the field that when Clark Lee is speaking to the defense, you have another head coach who knows what to look for, knows how to communicate, knows how to do head coach things so that Clark Lee can kind of handle his business as defensive coordinator. So what I'm seeing almost is co-head coaches, even though that's not how it's titled, that's not how it's paid, that's not how it's, ultimately the accountability does not fall on Jerry Kill as it would on Clark Lee, but you're seeing a dual head coach situation to where now you have that support system. You have that idea of like, okay, Clark Lea is the head coach and he's over the defense. And then when Clark Lea is acting as defensive coordinator, you have another head coach that can step in and be the head coach for the interim period of however long it takes Clark Lea to do his defensive coordinator duties. So now it adds that extra element of detail that Clark Lea can spend now with his defense. And that's going to be extremely valuable, especially in the first game where Virginia Tech's going to come out firing all cylinders. They got a lot of guys returning, some really dynamic receivers, and the secondary is going to have its work cut out for them. Clark Lea's going to need to focus on that a little bit. And Jerry Kill allows this to happen because he's another head coach. He's somebody that can do some things as he's chief consultant to the head coach, I think is what his title is, which means there's a very good chance that he could take over a lot of Clark Lea's administrative duties during the week. On the fields, obviously, he's not going to be able to talk to the referees as the head coach, but he will be able to relay some things, and he will be able to manage some things as the acting head coach, even if it's just for 10 minutes. So this is a really, really good move. This is really valuable. Okay. So that piece of it is great. Now, the other side of that also is the fact that now Diego Pavia has a familiar face to come to the sideline to and be able to debrief on what happened on the series. Jerry Kill's able to give him adjustments, things like that. He's able to communicate between him and Coach Beck. There's a situation to where, that scenario is going to be really positive for Pavia because he has somebody he trusts. He has somebody he knows knows him and his game in and out versus, as well as Pavia knowing how Jerry Kill is. He's a liaison for Tim Beck. It's just that brain trust of those guys being able to relay messages back and forth, I think is going to make this offense go. Because if Jerry Kill was a little bit detached, I don't know how valuable that would be because, if you're kind of detached from things, you can't really talk to people except for through the headset occasionally when your input is asked for. I don't know how somebody like Jerry Kill would be involved in whatever game plan or whatever the situation is. I don't know how much he would be in tune if he wasn't able to do that. And now that he's able to do that, he can really kind of get involved in the game plan, making sure the guys execute the game plan, helping the offensive staff keep guys accountable. So it's like you have two offensive coordinators, just kind of going back and forth. You can you can align your guys in different situations now to where you can truly put your best guys in the places they need with the responsibilities that make them perform at their best. Because you have that extra set of eyes and you have that extra body down there in Jerry Kill. So now you really get to hyper focus some guys, some of these younger assistants on, hey, running backs coach, you're looking for inside linebacker patterns. You're looking for things, blitzes and, certain down and distances. You're kind of looking for this, that, and the other. They will all have their checklist. And then Jerry Kill will help organize all that. And Jerry Kill has been a very integral part in establishing the offense, establishing these guys in believing in Tim Beck, getting them to buy in, of course, and really just kind of making sure everybody's crisp in what they're doing and making sure everybody's just kind of on the ball a little bit. So this is like, I didn't think it was going to happen. Like I never thought that it was possible. I never thought that Jerry Kill would be a game day sideline coach. At all. I never thought he had that chance. I thought he'd be up in the booth, not just chilling, but be in the booth, very low key, sitting next to Tim Beck or on a headset calling down to Tim Beck, charting things with, one of the other coaches. And now you get him to be an extra set of eyes. Now maybe Coach LePat can focus on special teams a little bit too, and being able to do things he needs to do with that realm. versus like being so hyper-focused on tight ends and having to deal with that. That's also a beneficiary. Like some of these guys with other roles within the staff will have a chance to complete those roles. So Jerry Kill, I just don't see many negatives to him. The only negative I could see is when things get competitive and things get kind of heated. Like maybe there's too many Chiefs. If that's the only thing I can think of, that's the only potential downfall. Is it like Jerry Kill is super competitive, and ultimately Clark Lee is as well, and could there be too much friction there? Could Jerry Kill overstep his bounds? There's always the possibility of that. And when you give him a headset and you give him a little bit of leeway and a little bit of power, obviously Clark Lee's going to have to define that for him on what he wants, but there's always that chance. That's the only downfall I see, is just Jerry Kill kind of getting out of his lane a little bit when things are going sideways. And so that would be the one thing I'd watch out for. But overall, having a voice for Pavia, phenomenal. Having an extra set of eyes so that other assistants can be hyper-focused on specific things is great. Having an extra voice for Tim Beck on the sideline, giving him detailed intel from Diego Pavia, because he's probably the best Pavia translator out there as far as like being able to relay that information, because he knows Pavia so well from his 2 years at New Mexico State. Allowing Coach LePac to do special teams, that is valuable. And giving Clark Lee a solid foundation of, hey, Clark, defense is, you're going to have to adjust to whatever just happened out there. Take your guys. I got this. I'll be the head coach for the next 5 minutes for you so you can do this, and I'll keep you updated. So that's the benefits of it. I love this move. I think it's great. You're going to see it's just going to open up. Like these staffs are just going to be monstrous. So be ready for that. And these staffs are going to turn into NFL staffs where everyone can coach everyone, and it doesn't matter because ultimately it's professional sports. But anyway, for Vandy to be successful is you got to win the gimmies. You got to win the easy ones, the easy games. We'll talk about what those easy games are next. All right, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. That's right. I love sports, and you know what? I love them so much that I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports just aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime that I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. What's up? Are you watching ESPN or Fox Sports and you have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? I know that gets annoying, so you need to make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV Channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So welcome back, segment number 2. We are just about halfway through the show, and thank you to the everydayers for making all of this possible. You guys are awesome. Y'all are great. Just keep it rolling, man. Just keep the fans coming, and keep those views up, and let's make this thing huge, man. Because if Vandy's going to get a hype train going, this is the place to start it. Locked On Vandy is the place for all your positivity. I'm not a negative guy. I don't like being negative. And so I'm going to try to keep this thing as positive as I can while being real as well. And we're just going to get this thing rolling. So thank you for listening each and every day. We thank you from the bottom of my heart. So Vandy's got to win the gimmies. They got to win the easy games. Okay. So Vandy wants to go to a bowl. There's 3 games out there that they absolutely have to win. And those 3 games last year, they went they went 2 for 3, winning Hawaii, Alabama State, and getting shellacked at UNLV. So it's kind of a similar scenario where you're not opening with one of these games, but you do have one FCS, one group of 5 home game, and then on the road again for a group of 5. And you got to win the road game. So these are must-win, easy games, okay? These are the 3 you have to get. You have no choice but to get them. So start with Georgia State. And this is honestly, this is a well-coached team, okay? And this game is going to get a little bit tricky. They were a bowl team last year, and honestly, they're going to be even better. They just hired Del McGee as the head coach. Okay. They, coming off actually probably a pretty successful run there. And now you get a new coach, which I think is a really, really good hire, because I think that when you look at what they had, adding Del McGee as a head coach was probably the best move. They had two options at head coach, Del McGee and Buster Faulkner. And I think they hit a home run with Del McGee, truthfully. And he's going to recruit really well to that area. He's been recruiting Atlanta and the Columbus area and the state of Georgia really, really well. And the state of Georgia is very talent rich. So they're going to get even some of the leftover guys for the state of Georgia is absolutely insane. And it's going to get to a point where they could almost out-recruit Georgia Tech, to be honest with you, because, it's a little bit easier to get into, and it's a little bit less of whatever. So this is insane. So here's what to expect. They were the best in the Sun Belt on third downs last year. They kind of fell apart, though. They were bad in pass protection, so that's good for Clark Lee, as they're going to have a tough time protecting the quarterback. They're losing a star at their running back position, but they're bringing in C.J. Beasley. He's somebody that you're going to have to watch out for. You have Zach Gibson at quarterback from Georgia Tech, actually. And that is going to be a different set of skills. You lose Darren Granger, who is more of a runner, kind of more of a dynamic guy. But you get Zach Gibson, who's a good quarterback, just doesn't really run all that well, or as well as you'd like. And then receivers, Talik Williams and Josiah Creedle, I think are guys you kind of have to watch out for there. And this team, the reason why they have a new head coach is because they started out well and had a disastrous finish. But the secondary should be much improved. Gavin Pringle is a decent veteran. Kenyatta Watson, who transferred from Georgia Tech, is going to be somebody that can come in and get some good minutes over there. Pass rush they're going to have to get creative with that, which, to be honest, it's going to be, if they can't get a pass rush, it's going to be a long season. But they're going to be playing at home, and this is going to be a big game for them, and they're going to be up for it. And honestly, it's probably good that you're getting this team this year, because Del McGee is going to get them right. He's going to get them going good. And to get him going good, you have to endure kind of a rough first year, because it's going to be a bit of a learning curve for him as he transforms his roster. It's going to be a little bit crazy, but this is a game that they're a respectable enough opponent that if you can really kind of beat up on them a little bit, which I think with a lack of pass rush that's likely, and a secondary that's replacing some people with a brand new quarterback and some pieces that you're having to kind of get creative with, I think this is a good chance to win a game on the road against a respectable opponent and you win it big, that could kind of be a springboard for your season. That could be something that you look at and say, okay, well, that's a good win. And you can say, yeah, I know it's Georgia State, but this is something that will bring a little bit of respect to you because of who the head coach is. He's very well respected in the SEC. I mean, Clark Lee and company know Del McGee and know what he brings to the table. They know kind of what this team is like, what the state is like as far as being able to recruit even just the city of Atlanta. They know all the parameters of and the potential this Georgia State program has. They just haven't tapped into it yet, and they likely won't third game of the season. But this is a team that you can look at the end of the year and going, dang, this was actually a pretty good team we beat, because they're going to start to get some things rolling, and they're going to be really, really good. So the key for Vanderbilt is to stop the running game, because CJ Beasley is going to be pretty special dude. He's going to be pretty good. They've got to be a little bit more dynamic if they're going to get him going, and then get pressure on the quarterback and obviously buy themselves time to throw. And I think this will be a pretty easy game. But this is, out of all the easy games, this is definitely the hardest one. So looking forward to this matchup. Again, I don't know why Vanderbilt keeps playing these games on the road like this, especially against G5 bowl teams who, Georgia State was they were in the Idaho Potato Bowl, and that was probably like the biggest stick out like a sore thumb game ever, because but they beat Utah State. So, I mean, they're definitely a team that's capable of playing above their head. And, that's what makes this game scary, is that they're like that. But when you kind of drill down and see all the stuff that they have to fix, playing hard sometimes just doesn't quite equate to wins. But this team will be very, very good, much better than the UNLV team that this Vanderbilt team ran into last year. But this is a very different Vanderbilt team than what played UNLV last year as well. So we'll see. Win the easy ones. We'll continue with that. Ball State, are they easy? I don't know. We'll check them out. All right, welcome back. We are wrapping up the show here in a few minutes, but would be remiss if I didn't thank all of you everydayers and all of you people listening. If you like what you hear, make sure you lock on. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Vandy on all social media platforms. Make sure you find us anywhere you find your podcast, and anywhere you find your podcast, and on YouTube also. So make sure you check out Locked On SEC next. Make sure you make them your next listen each and every day. And if you want to, like I say all the time, if you want to be the most informed fan base in the country, make sure you listen to the other shows that the SEC has to offer. Make sure you listen to Locked On Ole Miss, Locked On Auburn. Make sure you check out those shows as well, because that's going to be fun. So anyway, this is going to be crazy. Okay, this game is going to be, where this game is kind of sandwiched for Vanderbilt is this. It's like right before Texas, okay, and it is right after Kentucky. So likely there's a chance you're coming off a huge win, and there's a chance you're going on a two game stretch of Texas and at Auburn, and this is kind of like your tune-up game, your last real big tune-up game before you head to Texas, before you head down the stretch of Texas, Auburn, and South Carolina, but before having a bye prior to your LSU and Tennessee games to end the season. But this game is important. I don't want to understate the importance of this game, because it is a game that if you can't get this game, then you are going to be in a world of hurt. Okay, because if you're at a point where you've been shellacked by Alabama, Missouri, and Kentucky, let's say you hit a rough patch. Let's say you get a few injuries. Let's say there's some things not go your way. You lose this game, you can kiss the rest of the season goodbye. Because if the confidence would be at all-time low, then you have Texas, and then you're on the road at Auburn. When you're down, Jordan-Hare Stadium is not where you want to be. Okay. Now, luckily, the newest co-head coach that's just been ruled eligible to coach on the sidelines will get to coach on the sidelines at Auburn. So that should put some fear into Hugh Freeze. But that's not fun if you struggle against Ball State walking into the next game with Texas and then Auburn and then South Carolina, who typically gets better as the season goes along. And if you want to listen to a little bit more about South Carolina, check out the episode I just did with Andrew Lyon. So it's a very important game because it's in the middle. It's a very important game because it's a get right game. It's a game that you have to have in order to get your pieces back in line. It's a game that you have to be able to work out whatever kinks you were struggling with, whatever you couldn't do right, whatever injuries, whatever nagging injuries you have. Has to be the game that you look at and say, okay, we're going to get this one. We can hold you out. We can rest you. We can get you well, and then move on. But if you're not right in this game, you're probably likely not going to be right in any other games. But for Ball State, I think on offense, you have to watch out for – they're going to have a pretty good offensive line. It's going to be led by Ethan Crow, who's slated to be an all, preseason, all first team, all conference. And he's the only one on the list, really. But Ball State's going to be a pretty solid team. They're always well coached, and they're always They're always really competitive, and they always play hard. So you have to look at that and be excited. They also have a second team, all conference offensive lineman in John Musillo, or I'm sure I butchered that name. Sorry, John. But they're going to be good up front. And they're going to be able to protect their quarterback. They're going to be able to do some things that, you have to be able to do. They have a good linebacker in Keontae Newsom, and that's an important position to be good at as linebacker. And, again, I think when you look at this Ball State team, you can't, at this point in the season, you can't understate scrappy. Okay, you cannot understate scrappy, because that is something that stands out. That's something that gives teams fits. That's something that UNLV was last year. They were scrappy, and it was about this point in the season when Vanderbilt got curb stomped by UNLV because they were scrappy. They played hard, and they were opportune, and they had fortunate bounces, and they were in the right place at the right time, and they did the right things at the right time in order to be able to pull off, which was deemed an upset because UNLV is not very good. They're pretty. I like their offense coordinator a lot, though, Brendan Marion. They do a lot of good things on offense, but they just, as a team, they just weren't very. They're not great. They're good, and you get destroyed. It's at this point in the season where you get a scrappy team that plays hard, that plays together. It's tough, and that's what Ball State does. Brian New has his team humming, dude. They're a team that if you step on the gas early, you should cruise to a win. But if you allow them to hang around, they're a team that's going to start believing in themselves. And you could probably say that honestly about a lot of teams, but like Ball State is a team that you can't do that because you're expecting to win. And next thing you know, you're in a tight game with Ball State. You're flustered. They're not. That's a recipe for disaster. And you have to avoid that by doing your job and doing it well. And this is where this Vanderbilt team has to mature. And it'll be games like Alcorn State as well, where this team will mature is when they can get through some of these games easily, where they can do their jobs easily, no matter who is on the field across from them. Now, occasionally there's going to be some more talented people across from them. It's going to make doing their job a lot more difficult. But if they play with the same standard, the same mentality, it's not going to matter if they're playing Alabama or Alabama State, right? It's not going to matter. They're going to perform to a standard, and that's what they've got to get to. And I think that's the wisdom that Jerry Kill has hopefully brought with him over to Clark Lee. And that's, part of the overhaul. Part of the overhaul, the mindset also has to be compete at all times, no matter what, no matter who. And you play to a standard, not to an opponent. You're not playing to beat Ball State. You're playing to play the best football that you possibly can play so that you can beat everybody. And you're not trying to beat somebody, you're trying to beat everybody. And in order to do that, you have to be at your best at all times and be at your best when your best is needed, which is for a late season run. This game has got to be where you sharpen the knives. This game has got to be where you get sharp. And if they can do that, I think they'll be very, very pleased with the results. So we hope you have a great 4th of July week. We hope we've gotten your week started off properly, and we'll be back with another episode of the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Behave yourselves. Anchor down.